Hey everyone, yeah, welcome back. Good to see you again. You're looking well. Get yourself a drink and a seat up front. We're going to get started. Because, yes, there's a show. It's all been happening and now you want to know. But before we can start, we must begin with hello. My name is Sean, your host and fellow. Now grab hold your beverage, your mind just as quick. We're building up for our best sip. So join me now for the greatest pleasure where we unwind this world together. It's time now. It's time for the sip. Let's do it now. Let's do it quick. Go! Yes, delicious. Well, in January 2026, a Florida man, Patrick Rinaldi, was driving down US 192 in Brevard County when his car caught fire. As anyone would do when their car catches fire, he continued driving the flaming vehicle down the highway with his wife trapped inside. Witnesses saw heavy smoke billowing from the vehicle, and Rinaldi did stop once, but soon got back in the car and carried on driving even harder. He eventually abandoned it, he and his wife barely escaping the flames. Unfortunately, he did so a little bit too close to the bushes, which were now also on fire. Firefighters were soon on the scene and put out both the fires. When deputies arrived, they could smell alcohol on Patrick, but he promised he had only had one beer. Officers found a bottle of liquor on the floorboards of the now smouldering wreck. He was arrested for DUI and refusing a breath test. The Brevard County Sheriff's Office shared it and described it as one of the wildest scenes they'd ever seen. At least he can have a drink named after him now, St. Patrick Rinaldi of the Flaming Sambucas. Meanwhile, over in Iran, on Thursday, the Iranian forces were launching a number of attacks on US ships. All the attacks seemed to be intercepted and failed, though, and the US responded with strikes on missile and drone sites located on Keshem Island, Bandar Abbas, and Hormozgan province. CENTCOM emphasized that it did not seek the escalation. And this is a notable flare-up, given the weeks of relative calm that we've had. There's no real surprises here. Iran attacked the US ships, and the US already said that it would respond in kind if they did so. Then on Friday, US forces disabled 3 tanker ships bound for Iranian ports. They were trying to force their way past the blockade and did not have much luck against destroyers and F-18s. So when you're faced with an opponent that has overwhelming force, you should really try to keep the peace. It seems that Iran was very keen to test the waters using civilians, which is very noble. It was actually quite good of the US only to disable the ships. I mean, they could have easily sunk them, but that would have obviously caused extra problems. So they were fairly reserved in that they only disabled them. Satellite imagery also showed what looked like an oil slick off Karg Island, which is Iran's main oil export terminal. That's quite concerning because obviously the environmental damage that might bring. Oil is not really kind to living creatures. The cause is a little bit unclear, but with the blockade being in place for a few weeks now, Iran's got nowhere to offload the oil. So the wells will still be pumping. It's very difficult to just turn them off. But there's nowhere for the oil to go at the moment. All the reservoirs and all the tankers and the containers and everything else that's going to have any space is going to be full of oil already. So, they may just be dumping the oil into the water now. I'm not sure that's going to do Iran any favours when it starts washing up on the neighbours' shorelines. Ecosystem will take a hit too. The Strait of Hormuz is quite rich in fishing, and having all that food polluted with oil isn't going to help feed anyone. I do hope it's an incorrect report because it just looks like a lose-lose for everybody in the region, if this is indeed what is the case. It's not clear exactly what the bloom is, but it certainly looks potentially like it could be from there, and it looks like it's extending from the from the island itself. So I don't know what the viability of capturing or disabling that terminal would be, but it could prevent an ecological disaster from the whole region. Yeah, the US has also reportedly been redirecting ships, about 50 of them so far, as part of the blockade. Iran has denied the oil leak, claiming inspections had found no issues in the pipeline or in tanks. Over the weekend, the blockade continued, and up to 70 ships now being held, which would be worth hundreds of millions of dollars a day for the Iranian regime. It's a crazy amount of money to be losing. No doubt the cash flow will start to become a real concern for the leadership, the IRGC, and they'll be finding it increasingly difficult to keep the soldiers on side once the people start losing money and they can't pay the bills. As for the negotiations, Iran responded to the US via Pakistan. Reports are that Iran are wanting to end the fighting. No shock there. But it is a bit strange because the only fighting that's been happening is when they've been attacking ships now, and both military and civilian vessels. I think they're trying to tie the Lebanon into the negotiations, but that's really a separate issue. They've offered to reduce the enrichment or transfer some of the nuclear material to a third country like Russia, but they also wanted reassurances, compensation, and sovereignty recognition over their rights to the Strait. Late on Sunday, President Trump rejected Iran's offer as totally unacceptable, accusing them of playing games. Clearly, the Iranians understand what the ask was. I think everybody knows that. They're asking about the nuclear material, but they seem not willing to exchange it. So the back and forth continues. I think there'll be another week of this at least. There's a chance of an airstrike targeting the leadership. I think that chance of that is increasing. Perhaps something that something targeting the oil or any of the remaining nuclear facilities. Maybe even a second strike on some of the old targets like Natanz or Fordow that were attacked in June last year. I don't know if they're going to be trying to rebuild those facilities, but they are the kind of designated areas for that kind of work to happen. So it'll be interesting to know if they're trying to rebuild those facilities. I did find it a bit odd. I do find it a bit odd that Iran aren't trying to divest away from oil and nuclear at the moment. They've got plenty of sun. Why don't they just sort of put some money into some kind of solar plant of some kind? They do seem quite doggedly wanting to stick to the nuclear ambitions, especially the self-enrichment. The majority of countries with nuclear power stations actually don't enrich themselves. They actually purchase their fuels from other countries have the facilities for that. Iran are going for the enrichment first approach, though, and even though they're faced with this choice of being wiped out, they're still sticking to that path. That tells me a lot more about their intentions than anything else. Understandably, oil prices have spiked again, and we'll have to see how that plays out during the week. Trump will often try and calm the markets on that side just to make sure that oil stays at a reasonable price, but any escalations in the region are sure to sort of continue to create increased pressure for that. Meanwhile, over in the US, jobs numbers were released and they actually look kind of okay. 115,000 new non-farm jobs were added, and March was even revised higher to 185,000. So often we see those jobs get revised down. We get big promises about what happened, and I can't even remember for the last 4 years before this any of the numbers being revised up again. So this is a positive development. Seems quite significant, especially if you consider that net migration to the US may actually be negative for the first time in decades. Fewer people, but more jobs. It seems like a very good positive. Even wages seem to be improving, 3.6% year on year. is beating inflation. Inflation has cooled significantly from the previous year. I think that was at 2.6%, so probably 1.1% on top of inflation. And the rental market for housing has softened too. There's more housing stock becoming available, which is increasing the competition among landlords. And with Jerome Powell leaving at the Fed Reserve this month, the new Federal Reserve nominated chairman, Kevin Warsh, he may bring in some additional relief for homeowners if he can stop to bring the rates down. So, yeah, there's some good reasons to be optimistic there about the US economy. Certainly better than the UK at the moment. The Item Club, which is a prominent UK-based forecasting group, say they expect 163,000 job losses by the end of the year. That would be taking unemployment, I think, from like 5.3% up to 5.9%, which is a step up. They do expect most of those losses to occur in the kind of poorer areas like Wales and Northern England, where construction and manufacturing are quite key. And they do expect those sectors to be hit most by these cuts. There's also the problem of rising costs as well. Import costs into the manufacturing process are increasing because of energy and raw input materials going up. So, yeah, a bit of a mixed bag for the world economy at the moment. Figure have also released a new video showing two of their robots doing household chores, cleaning chores. In it, they're working together to tidy up a room, move some clothes, and tidy up the chairs and the desks, and make the bed, etc., etc. Did so fairly quickly. It did make me think about how awesome it would be to have a few robots in the house. Imagine what they could get up to when the chores are done. You could think, okay, well, that's all they can do, but well, they can do a lot more. And Brian Ramel mentioned that they could even start to work on manufacturing things for you at home. It could even repair things around the house and even make things to sell online. So if you had some tools, they could be programmed to use them. And imagine going to sleep and in the morning you've got a new coffee table, exactly how you designed it and in the place you wanted it. So yeah, there's a lot of possibilities there. Taking that further, imagine waking up in the morning to the whole dining area being redecorated, complete with a hot breakfast on the table. I'm sure there's going to be some enterprising folks that may even have a different look for each day of the week. The most exciting part about this, about having domestic robots, is not only the fact that they can take care of the chores, but they can improve all those things around us. And once you own the robot, the cost is fairly negligible. It's mainly the time factor. So if you wanted some home upgrades or something, you could just get the robot to help design and do the updates. Just leave them to it, basically, get on with it. Any homeowner will tell you that there's never a shortage of things to do around the house. And that usually means spending money of some kind on maintenance. This will effectively reduce those costs to zero. It'll be down to the materials themselves. The labour costs will be, just the time, really, and electricity. But I think, probably, in fact, we'll start to see more robots in construction as well. Imagine a dozen robots all working together to build a new house at a fraction of the cost it is today. Completely bespoke to your tastes and preferences and any needs you may have. They could basically work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, if you wanted to. I think that is definitely something that will be able to bring housing prices down quite considerably in the future. So yeah, that kind of brings me to the end of my notes. I just have one thought left for the day, which is, take heed of the power of positive thinking. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, but there's a lot of things that can go right as well. And framing the challenges in your life in a positive way gives you much more chance of overcoming them, even actually looking forward to them in some cases. So yeah, I'd say try to think of everything in the positive. It's obviously not guaranteed for everything, but almost certainly you can find the silver lining in whatever's happening. And if you do so, your life will be a lot easier, a lot less stressful, and a lot more positive. And with that, I will say thank you very much and bid you well and say see you later. Cheers.